Hello and welcome to this very special interview with one of the greats of modern chess, Hikaru Nakamura. And if I am right in saying this, I think in India, except our Indian players and of course Anand, the two players we follow the most and celebrate the most, one is Magnus Carlsen, one is Hikaru Nakamura. One for his chess, two for his chess content creation, three for the respect that he has for Anand and the kind of stuff that he's spoken about India. Open arms welcome. Love to hear him speak, see his stuff on social media, and of course, follow him as a player. So, welcome. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you joining me. Impact of the GCL.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Yeah, so I think when you look at the Global Chess League, it's a new format. You have this team event where it's a team comprised of 6 players, male, female, and a junior player. You have a very innovative scoring system where if you win with black, you get 4 points. Winning with white, you get 3 points. And also there's no increment, which I think some people have been talking about quite a bit. I think all these innovations are an attempt to push chess more mainstream, to make it more accessible to people who don't follow chess basically at all. And I'm actually enjoying the event quite a bit. So I think it's been very good so far.
Okay, and does it allow for more fan engagement? Because so far, this kind of a format, and I was seeing a lot of photos from London, even last year during Dubai. Does it allow for more fan engagement with more people following the sport and you guys becoming kind of accessible to the fans?
Yeah, I think definitely it does. Actually, if I were going to say one thing, maybe my one critique of this event is I think that people in chess aren't aiming high enough in terms of fan engagement. I think that if I look at the Speed Chess Championship, which recently was held by chess.com in Paris, the live audience was something like 50 to 60 people who were watching, which was, it's something. Here you might have maybe a little over 100, but I would actually argue that I think that the organizers of these events should be aiming higher. And I specifically say that because when I compare chess to other, say, esports or games, I think that we're not aiming high enough. And I guess I'd use a specific concrete example where very recently there was this game called GeoGuessr, which is a very basic browser-based game. You guess locations and everything. And for their big event, they had 1,000 people, I believe at like a city hall or something in Stockholm. And so if there's one critique I would have, I think that there could be much more engagement than there currently is. So that's maybe the one thing that maybe I'm a little bit disappointed in. But that being said, of course, it's very good that the fans who are here in London have the opportunity to meet us. And I think it's been very fun for them. And it's something that is not considered normal in the chess world. So to have that is definitely a step in the right direction.
The Olympiad, your comments, for example, after the Olympiad, trust me, almost everybody in India either retweeted your comment about the Anand generation, that one man without any tradition kind of came and revolutionized everything. And this is the generation of Vishy's kids. Can you kind of elaborate that? Because yes, India has had a tradition, whether it's in the 1930s with Sultan Khan, in the 1980s. We've all heard of, for example, as a historian of Indian sport, I've read some of Sultan Khan's stuff in the 1920s when he traveled abroad. I've chronicled them also. But I understand where you're coming from. Before Vishy Anand, this thing, no real star. He came and revolutionized it. Your thoughts on why you said it and in what context you said it?
Yeah, so I think everybody knows that chess was invented in India, but my general take is that I look at it from the perspective of even if there was maybe some general interest in chess, but you had no superstars. And when I look at Indian chess, this is a funny story, but when I was much younger, I think I was 9 or 10 years old, I played this World Youth Chess Festival, which was held in Oropesa, Spain, and there was this Indian guy who was there, a player by the name of Manuel Aaron, who I think became India's first international master. He was there giving out this magazine. I think it's called Chessmate, if I remember correctly. And I actually read that and enjoyed it quite a bit. So obviously, I'm aware that there is history with chess in India, but you didn't have the superstars. And I think the other thing that's really important to keep in mind is that the time period of Vishy Anand when he was growing up and playing chess is very different than now. There was no technology. You basically had to read books, and even books, I would say, in English probably were not readily available on chess in India at that time, and he had to travel abroad, play all these events, and I really feel like he did it without anything. And if you compare it to the modern day generation, like even players like myself or Magnus, technology has been the great equalizer. We could be anywhere in the world, and we have that access in a way that didn't exist back when Anand was playing. But that in and of itself would be incredible if you just become the 5-time world champion and that's it. But when you look at the people, you look at the transformation of, I think, the way chess is viewed in India now, it's something that's viewed as a very intellectual sport. There's a lot of national pride around the game. That, I think, would not exist whatsoever without Vishy. So I think he deserves a lot of credit. Obviously, there are plenty of other people who've done things along the way, but I think he made it where it's acceptable. It's considered something that's worth trying. And It's just been incredible to see the rise of Gukesh, Prague, Arjun, even that second layer players like Nihal Sarin. They're amazingly strong, and I would just say without Vishy, none of it happens. Just flat out, none of it happens. And I think he doesn't. Maybe he does get the credit in India, but I definitely feel like a lot of people, especially from the younger generation, we don't sort of study history as much. We don't appreciate what all the people who've laid the groundwork for the current generation.
I've interviewed a lot of chess players. You speak the best. That's a serious compliment. I do interviews for a living. I've done this for 35 years, and I do all sport. I do Olympics, cricket, etc. But this is a pleasure so far. Tell me something. I mean, you just mentioned the younger generation, and I spoke to Gukesh. I spoke to his dad. I spoke to Prague, Vidit, Arjun. All of them tell me that. Prague, Vidit, Arjun, for example, that Gukesh is an overwhelming favorite going into that World Championship final. Can you kind of set it up for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually very simple. I mean, Ding has to be the greatest actor of all time. Otherwise, it's impossible to look at this match and not see Gukesh as a huge favorite, simply because Ding's form over the last year and a half has not been good. He's played at a subpar level, well below, I would say, top 10 in the world. And Gukesh has been playing well. And of course, he's younger, so he's still improving. And as I said, unless Ding somehow can change something on a psychological level, or he was basically pretending and keeping his best chess strategies in his pocket until the match, there's just no way that I see Ding being competitive. I think Gukesh is a huge favorite. If Ding is able to draw the first couple of games, say they get to game 4, game 5, and the match is tied, I think Ding's chances go up tremendously. But I really, based on what I've seen in his last events, especially the Chess Olympiad, where he lost a couple of games. I think he lost a game to Kwanglam where he was better, then it was equal, then he was a little bit worse. These are the sorts of games and type positions that in a world championship match you're going to have to defend. You're going to have to avoid losing, and he wasn't able to do that. So unless something magically changes, it's just I don't see anything based on the last couple of years that makes me think that that Gukesh is not. I mean, probably an 80. I would say he's 80% favorite, 80% plus.
You recently said 5D chess is quite confusing. What is 5D chess? Honestly, I don't know.
5D chess? Oh, I mean, I don't think it's a real thing. I think there was some game that people created. But, I would say that one term that I've seen mentioned a lot in the media especially is this term 4D chess. I mean, I've seen probably, I would guess, at least a dozen or more tweets about Trump and playing 4D chess. So whether it's 5D chess, 4D chess, I think they're more metaphors for what chess can be than anything serious.
And Nakamura Vidit podcast, for example, a colleague of mine tells me the collaboration is incredible. Thoughts on that?
When I've done stuff with Vidit?
Yes, you and Vidit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when I look at sort of the pandemic period, there were two people who were very big in chess on the internet. One of them was Vidit Gujarati. The other one, of course, was Seme Reina. And both of them were doing a lot of content on the internet. And I think when I look at what they've done, but even what Sagar Shah has done, it's been very good in raising the profile of chess in India. And I think Indians are very hungry for chess, which is why events like this also, I think, can bring the game to a bigger audience. And I expect Gukesh to win. And I think if Gukesh wins the match, we're only going to see more and more chess tournaments in India, more interest in India. And that can only be good for the game and obviously for the country as well.
Last couple of questions. I mean, when I see you, and I love this in you, you're not simply a chess player. You are also a content creator and making chess more accessible to lay people who want to understand the game. I'm not a professional chess player, but I love to see your stuff and get sort of, interested in the sport. How do you see yourself as a chess content creator and, of course, your responsibility as one of the greats of the game?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the way that I look at it is that when you look at events like the Global Chess League, I mean, I will talk very briefly about some of the negativities. Some people have been very unhappy with the fact the games have no increment or other things. And my view is very much that with chess, we've had a very similar structure for the tournaments for the last decade at least. Tournaments like the Grand Chess Tour, for example, or the Candidates, or various tournaments like the Grand Swiss, which is held in the Isle of Man. And you have a sort of, I would say, old school format. You have these set formats that are a little bit a little bit out of date in my opinion, and you really need to start thinking outside the box in terms of trying things differently. And so when I look at the Global Chess League, or any new event, I would say for that matter, I think people who try to do things in the way that events have been run, at least over the last decade, is not going to bring in new fans. It's been tried, it has not been successful, and ultimately, if we want chess to become much bigger, there probably are going to have to be some sacrifice made outside of, say, the World Blitz and Rapid Championship or the World Championship itself when it comes to chess. And I think that, maybe I'm wrong on this, but my view is that we're in a golden age of chess right now. There's a lot of interest, whether it's in India, whether it's in the West. There's so many people who play the game casually. And actually, when I say casually, I mean people who play it or maybe watch videos, but not people who watch live broadcasts. I do want to be very clear on that. And I think that when you try to be innovative, try to make these changes, that can only, in the long run, benefit the players if it's successful. If it doesn't succeed, I would argue that you haven't really lost anything, because you can always go back to what you've been doing. I mean, one of the great things about chess is that it has such a long history that people just love that. And so, in my opinion, I think that trying new things is a good thing. I would say more and more as I do content, I mean, one of the things that I learned early in the pandemic, I would say, is that even the way I thought about chess or the way that I play games, these sorts of things, there are a lot of things back then that I would have thought were very silly. But what I had to start realizing is that when I think in the mind of someone who's watching me on the internet, is that essentially, what are they going to like? Do they want me playing some blitz game over and over? Can I do something like 4-player chess? Can I do something with like blindfold chess? Can I play against viewers? I mean, all these different ways of engaging and interacting with the fans is very important. And these are things that if you go back to 2018, 2019, I never would have even thought about as a professional player. So I think since I've been doing content for so long now, a lot of my views are actually going to be different than most of the top players that you talk to, because I think most of the top players, they view it as everything is very good right now, but people should just be pouring more money into chess. There should be more sponsorship with the way it is. And I would actually argue that unless top players are out there doing stuff on social media, or say having meet and greets with fans in person, that it's very hard for sponsors to want to get involved. And I think the players have a sort of an obligation to do these sorts of things if they want the game to grow, versus just sitting back and hoping that it happens all by itself.
100% correct. Because if you sit in an armchair and think it'll happen, it won't happen. There are multiple other alternatives out there. In India, we have 29 Paralympic medals. That's a viable alternative. Yes, we have the twin golds in the Olympiad. But when I'm as a sponsor if I see somebody not interested in going that extra yard, I will go to someone who is interested in going that extra yard. So absolutely spot on that the players need to take that responsibility. Final question, Hikaru Nakamura. How are you socially? Clearly you are flamboyant. You're wearing a super pink shirt. I would have loved that. But more importantly, what is your favorite food? Is there anything Indian, culture-wise, film-wise, music-wise? How is Hikaru Nakamura backstage? Give me a sense.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a broad question. I think probably my favorite food naturally is going to be Japanese, but to be honest, I mean, I do eat quite a bit of Indian food. I like the kormas. I like things like vindaloo. I won't mention tikka masala because technically that's British, as we know. So I'll avoid saying that. But I think as far as movies go, I mean, of course, I watched Slumdog Millionaire. There was one other one that I watched as well. I'm trying to remember it, but it's not sticking out of my mind right off. But I have watched occasional Bollywood films as well. I would say more than that, actually, one of the things that I do like to do is I like reading quite a bit about like Indian history. And I think as you know, Tata passed away last night. I remember reading a lot about these industrialists and just seeing how they've changed the country over the last 65 years since the period of the Gandhi movement. And so I do like reading a lot about history. I think Indian history is very fascinating. So I've spent quite a bit of time on that.
Absolutely. And the Tata family is responsible for the start of the Olympic movement in India. If you read some of my books on Indian sporting history, I've actually documented the history of India's Olympic encounter in some length there. But absolute pleasure talking to you, because this is one of the better interviews, if not the best interview that I've done from the GCL. Trust you me, and I'm being honest. I must request you, whenever the Gukesh match happens, 10 minutes of yours, I would love to have another chat and bring you to my conclave at some point in time. You're a good man and good for sport, because clearly it was refreshing chatting with you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.